Senator for Hawaii.
I ask unanimous consent to vitiate the quorum call,
Can you clarify your request?
just to get rid of the quorum call.
Yes, without objection.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, this is exactly what it looks like. The President of the United States is going out of his way to make sure that people don't have enough to eat. And it is hard to believe because it does sound crazy. It does sound partisan. But he really is using hunger as a political weapon. Let's back up for a second. On September 30th, this administration, the Trump administration, released a plan saying that they were going to use a contingency fund to pay SNAP benefits during the shutdown. So this is the way it's been done. Every time there's a shutdown, there's a pocket of money that's literally there to pay SNAP benefits in case there's an emergency of any kind, including a lapse in appropriations. But then 3 weeks later, they said, never mind, we're not permitted to pay these benefits during a shutdown. Now, that was clearly not the case, and they had already issued guidance saying, we're going to use this fund. They pulled it because they wanted to create leverage, but then they went to court to argue against paying these SNAP benefits. And then two separate judges said, not only are you permitted to use this contingency fund to pay nutritional assistance benefits to the working poor, children, the elderly, the disabled. Not only are you permitted to do that, you're required under the statute to do that. So now you got two federal judges saying, the law is clear. It's not a question of whether you're permitted to do it or not. It's actually whether you're permitted to not do it. And the judges both said, you got to do this. That's what the law says. And so this week, they announced that they're only going to pay half of the benefits. They're going to pay half of the SNAP benefits that 40 million Americans need. And it's kind of even worse than that because SNAP goes through state agencies. And state agencies, in a lot of cases, the unemployment system is like this. They have these antiquated computer systems. And so any change in the benefit structure has to be reprogrammed into their computer systems and then loaded up onto the EBT cards. And so some states are going to be able to implement this half benefit within a few days. But there are several states with antiquated computer systems that are saying it could be weeks or even months. And I just want to make this point extremely clear. None of that is necessary. They're clearly feeling some amount of heat and urgency to end the shutdown. And so usually what you do if you're the President of the United States and you feel an urgent need to cut a deal is you try to get the people with whom you would need to make a deal into a room and begin a negotiation. But Trump really doesn't want to do that. He thinks we're evil. His senior advisor has called the Democratic Party a domestic terrorist organization or some such thing. And so he's just like, I don't know if he's incapable or at least so far unwilling to do the basic blocking and tackling required by being a political leader at any level. County council, mayor, state legislature, lieutenant governor, House, Senate, whatever, you got to like interact with people that you have disagreements with, but he doesn't want to do that. And so his theory of change, Stephen Miller, Russ Vought, some of these folks, is we're just going to squeeze Democrats. Now that would be like normal hardball politics, except for this. What they mean by squeezing Democrats is they mean threatening to shut down or throttle air traffic. What they mean by squeezing Democrats is canceling long-planned, long-approved projects that benefit everybody across the country. What they mean by squeezing Democrats in this particular instance is that 40 million people are going to not have enough to eat. And so, look, I don't always want to be the partisan warrior. I like interacting with my Republican colleagues. I come from the state of Hawaii where it's a decisive majority of Democrats. So one of the muscles that I had to develop over the last 13 years was sort of how to interact with the other party and make arrangements, cut deals, compartmentalize, the problems that I have with some of these folks on other issues and find common ground. And my appeal to my Republican colleagues is very simple. Can we just leave the kids harmless? Can we leave the hungry harmless? Like, we're clearly in a disagreement about how the appropriations process and this Affordable Care Act subsidy question should be wrestled to the ground. Now, my own view is like, let's just be adults and convene and then wrangle and argue and shout at each other a little bit and then reconvene and then cut the deal. That's how the country is supposed to work. But separate and apart from that, can we please say that using hunger as a weapon is out of bounds in the United States? There is a long and pretty dark history, an evil history of politicians, some popularly elected, some not elected, using food as a means of political control. And I think that's not a road that we want to go down. I think we want to say, whatever else we're fighting about, if there are Americans who are hungry, that we should hold them harmless. And just to be clear, there is no shortage of money in the United States of America. Stock market is booming. You've got these AI data centers like racking up $100 and $200 billion capital expenditure plans. There is enough money sloshing around in the public and the private sector to pay for food. There really is. If you're a regular person trying to put food on the table for your family, if you are trying to keep your health insurance premiums from more than doubling, if you're struggling to pay your bills and make ends meet because everything is getting more expensive, there's no money for you. But there is enough money for a golden toilet. And there is enough money for a $173 million new aircraft for the Secretary of Homeland Security. And there is $40 billion for the country of Argentina to bail them out, which coincidentally is about the amount of money that it would cost to extend these Affordable Care Act tax credits. So it's not a question of the economy is contracting and our debt is out of control and all the rest of it. This body just passed a $1.5 trillion deficit increase in the form of a tax cut where the benefits go not exclusively but disproportionately to wealthy individuals. And so it's not a question of there not being enough money. The problem is that they have decided that there's not enough money for you. I yield the floor.